Live from Utah's Wasatch Front, the pulse of the Mountain West, where the issues that shape your life meet the truth that sets you free. Across Utah, across the Republic, and around the world, welcome. This is KMMU.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Goud Crowd. I am your host, Goud. So I would like to welcome all of our regular listeners or watchers, as well as our hate watchers. I apparently have some of those, which is always amazing. I love my haters. I'm like Cardi B, so it's all good. Anyway, if you want to, whatever platform you're listening on, if you could like the show, share it, that'd be great, and we will get more publicity that way. So it's always good to be able to get more people to listen. Just to start, I wanted to note that we will have Scott Hatfield on. He'll come on at 5:15. He's running for Congressional District 4. And so he's got, I guess, to talk about whatever we want to talk about. So if you have questions, you can put them into the comments, or you can even call in. The number's 385-899-2134. I think it should be an interesting interview because he strikes me as maybe being more conservative than Mike Kennedy, which I think would be a good thing. Because I actually have, well, as I said this on social media, I will not vote for Mike Kennedy. I don't care if he's the nominee. There's no world in which he gets my vote. And it's because, number one, he voted to hide information about the Congressional Slush Fund and who used the money to pay off people that claimed that congressmen engaged in sexual misconduct. And he supports open borders and bringing in temporary visa programs. And I am adamantly opposed to that. And I will not vote for anybody who supports bringing in temporary workers to take jobs from Americans. So will not vote for him. Don't care what he says. Sorry, out. Of course, you can do what you want, but that's my view. The next thing is, I mentioned the Save America Act appears to be dead. If you've been paying attention, you should not be surprised at all. It turns out that what's unfortunate about this is that Senator Lee actually had momentum going into or coming up on their 2-week recess. I think had he actually objected to the recess, he may have actually been able to have some chance of getting it passed. I mean, it's my view it probably was failure theater from the beginning. But the minute that he let them go on recess, he lost all momentum. And I think that was when you should have actually picked up that, yeah, we're done. It's not happening. Okay, just give me 1 second here. And next on my list is... Yeah, and I can see that people online are actually saying John Thune needs to be removed as a majority leader. But like I said, they were never going to pass it. It's just not going to happen. And I also think part of the problem is at this point, Trump has lost basically all of the political capital he had. He wasted it, unfortunately, on things that were not part of his core message or the reason why people voted for him in 24. And so now we basically get a war in Iran. We don't get mass deportations. Those are over. And I guess we don't get the Save America Act. We don't get any really transformational, fundamental reforms that I think a lot of people were looking for. I know that's what I was looking for. Just a complete defenestration of the federal government so that it could no longer be used to abuse everyday citizens as it was under Biden. And I just don't think that has happened. Everything... I will say most things that Trump has done, unfortunately, will be reversed by a Democrat president. And I just feel like the trajectory that we are on, it's not, we're going to lose the midterms on the trajectory we're on. And I have a really bad feeling that we could end up losing the 28 election. And at that point, it's done. So, yeah, kind of negative, but it is what it is. Sad, but it is what it is. Okay, tonight, starting at 7 o'clock, so right after the show, there will be a debate. I didn't know about this, but there's going to be a debate between Tracy Halverson, Dan McKay, and Doug Fifia. It's kind of weird that this is not an alphabetical order. I would have thought you would put this in alphabetical order, but okay, it's fine. This is in Riverton. If you are a state delegate, if you're a primary voter, because I assume this will go to a primary, but I'm not sure. None of them are collecting signatures, so as long as two people get, well, I guess, yeah, as long as everyone is between 40 and 60% or two people, they'll go to a primary. So it could be a fun debate. These are, well, I think one of these people is fiery, so I think she'll make it at least entertaining. And then it'll be interesting to see the differences that Dan McKay and Doug Fifia stake out between each other, like what kind of space they put between each other. So check that out after this show. Again, if you're in Riverton. And then I had another thing on here before we go to Scott. Oh, we still have a few minutes. Let me see what this is. Oh, here. Okay. So as many people know, the state legislature changed our laws in this last session, and they have made it so that in your voter registration will become public. So under the current system, your voter registration can either be private or withheld. Private, anybody can get. You just have to mark a box on your voter registration form. Withheld is for law enforcement, military, people with protective orders, I guess people who think they're under the threat of domestic violence or the actual victims of domestic violence. They can all have their voter registration withheld, which means hardly anybody can look at it. It's basically just available to government officials. Private voter records are available to government officials and the parties and candidates, and then public is available to anybody. Because anybody can mark their ballot with the private designation, like 60% of Utah's voter rolls are now private or withheld. There's just one twist on this as well. Everybody who was private as of May 12th of 2020, they were converted to withheld. So there's a bunch of people in that withheld category who don't actually qualify under the rules that you have to be military, law enforcement, etc. Now, the legislature, in response to a lawsuit filed by Phil, the one where I'm his lawyer, said under the National Voter Registration Act, actually went in and changed the law to comply with the NVRA. We have confirmation of this from Senator Senator Todd Weiler. And they're making it so that everybody, I think everyone that's private, I thought it was private and withheld, is going to get defaulted into the public category, unless you go and you send in this form asking they have a new thing called an at-risk voter. And what we're seeing is that there are people now encouraging each other to essentially commit fraud. So a lady wrote a letter into the Salt Lake Tribune, and she says that all women should qualify for the at-risk status, like every woman in Utah, and then everyone that lives with them. So essentially everybody in Utah, well, except for me, because I'm gay and I don't have a woman living with me, but everybody else would qualify for this new status. And so I just think you can kind of see how ridiculous this is becoming. And I think part of this is a lot of Utahns have main character syndrome, right? So they think, oh my God, all my information is private. It's not. And nobody can find my house. They can. And if they can spend $1,200 on the voter rolls, they're going to try to find me in that massive document, which, by the way, it's actually I have a copy of one of the voter rolls. It's very difficult to go through it, to do anything, because it's such a large file that it slows your computer down. So it's not even like you can just like scroll through it and find anything. You'll have hundreds of thousands of names on there. They're not. And the bottom line is this: no one is going to spend $1,200 to get the voter roll so they can come to your house and find you. This is not going to happen. And there are restrictions on how you can use those voter rolls in the law, which means they can criminally prosecute people who misuse those voter rolls. So if someone actually did go and buy the voter rolls and then come and stalk you at your house, the authorities in your area, your district attorney, could go and they could actually prosecute them. So there are protections in place. And the reality is this: your address is public information. Like, people can find it. Unless you've done, some of the politicians, they put their homes in LLCs and they hide it and stuff, and whatever. That's one thing. But generally, for most people, your address, they can find it. It's not that hard to find. And I just think there's a lot of people being dramatic about this for no reason. Okay, I think I did that, Mr. Producer, unless you disagree. So anyway, what this woman is telling people is many women understand this. This is how ridiculous it is. Many women understand the reality of living with the potential threat of violence. From a young age, we are taught to be aware of our surroundings and take precautions. For some, those fears become lived experiences. For others, they remain a constant consideration. As females, we all qualify for the at-risk designation. Additionally, any voter residing in our home also qualifies. I mean, literally, the only people that won't qualify for this are gay men. The ones that live on their own. I guess while you're at your parents' house, you might qualify. If you wish to keep your voter registration information private, you can complete the at-risk form at vote.utah.gov. Each member of your household must submit a separate form. No additional documentation is required. Forms must be submitted to your county clerk by May 6th. So the entire point of this is we actually have to understand how this gets implemented by our county clerks, because it looks like there's an active effort to abuse the status, the at-risk status, and for as many people as possible to be able to take it even though they're not entitled to it. And we don't want that kind of abuse. The whole point is the voter rolls are supposed to be public so that anybody can go and look at them, verify that they're accurate and being kept and maintained properly. And that's a big issue in Utah, since we have a lieutenant governor who has cheated in elections multiple times, including in our own. So we have no room we're not trusting corrupt officials. We want to be able to verify everything. And so the new law is good. Now we're gonna have to look at how it's being implemented to see if the legislature needs to change it. Okay, so now, we'll have Scott in a few minutes. I don't know, Mr. Producer, do you want to pull up his website? I'll stop sharing, sorry. Okay, so Scott Hatfield is one of the candidates running in CD4. Another one, well, the big name in that race is Mike Kennedy, but there's a couple other ones running too, and I cannot remember their names. I apologize. Yeah, so here's his website. This is the second time he's running for Congress. He ran in 2023 in the special election for CD3. So I'm interested to hear why he's decided to run again and why this race. I assume that he'll probably say because he lives in this district, but I don't know if there's something else driving it, since a lot of the people running don't actually live in their districts. Maybe he doesn't live in his district. Malloy doesn't really live in her district. Blakemore doesn't live in his district. And I think Scott's here, so we'll bring him up. We'll let him answer the question. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Goud, how's it going?
Good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to finally be here.
Okay. I like the sunglasses. That's good. Okay. So
let's take it. Sorry, I'm just staring right at the sun. So
no, you're good. You're good. I will say, when I ran for county clerk, one time I had my sunglasses on, and this woman came, and she was talking to me, and then she was like, "I don't like when people wear their sunglasses. I can't see your eyes."
Well, it's a fair point, right?
Okay. Well, do you want to start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Scott Hatfield, obviously. I've been living in the state for roughly about 10 years. So May will be 10 years for me. I got out of the military after serving 6 years, 2 deployments with the Navy, and attached to Marine Corps units because I was a Navy corpsman. Since I got out of the military, I've held many different positions, working in healthcare admin at the VA, Then I left and went to school to get my bachelor's in political science and constitutional law, where I ended up getting to go over to Oxford and study constitutionalism with the Quill Project at Pembroke College, at one of the many satellite colleges within that make up the conglomerate of Oxford. After that, I got involved in politics and I started working with Senator Mike Lee. And I kind of worked with immigration and Department of Homeland Security, and for the U.S. Postal Service side of constituent affairs and policy influence, right?
Okay.
And then I ended up leaving because I had my daughter and family was really important to me, and I just didn't want to kind of run all over the place. So I ended up with the Department of Corrections.
Mhm.
And so since I've been there, I've had a three different positions. So I worked with constituent services and kind of communications up at the executive office. And then I went to work within the prison and basically just monitoring our inmate population with officers and healthcare providers and civilians, just making sure everybody's doing what they need to do. And currently now I kind of work in the warehouse and we just scan everything that comes in and that goes out that needs to be done as far as our law enforcement bureau wants us to kind of hone in on to catch all the nuisance contraband, your drug trade, anything that could cause like hits on individuals through the gang population, etc. So we see everything that comes in there and goes out. So I've kind of been doing that, and then during that time I got my master's in public administration with an emphasis in disaster management.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about me, and then I've had a little bit more of the political background is ran for CD2 in 2023, House District 49 when you were running for House District 48.
Yeah.
And then I pulled out of the Harriman City Council race to focus on myself and my family. And since then, I've kind of got myself back on the right track. And once I saw that Burgess Owens stepped out, and through some self-reflection and prayer, I decided that it was time to run for Congress again.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about. I am wondering. Like you said, this is your second time running for Congress now.
Yeah.
So maybe talk about what's different this time in terms of this run.
Well, so in 2023, when we were ultimately selecting Celeste Malloy, it was a crowded field. I think there was 14, maybe 15 individuals that were running,
Mm-hmm.
and only 13 of us really kind of showed up. And I didn't really know how everything worked, and I wasn't really putting the front foot forward. But again, that time we only had 2 weeks to really campaign across one of the largest districts in Utah.
Yeah.
So someone who's new and didn't really understand how things worked, I didn't really have a leg to stand on. So I'm not surprised that I only got, I think it was 5 electoral votes or delegate votes, right? And now
Okay.
this time, with Burgess Owens stepping out, and District 3's Mike Kennedy running in our district when he's serving in the third and representing the third and living in the third. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, no, we need somebody who actually lives in our district, to actually represent our affairs here. And I don't really buy into the Judge Gibson drawing the maps maliciously to pit Malloy and him together. But maybe they did. Maybe I don't know. But at the end of the day, he should be with the third district, and someone independent should be coming from the fourth. Whether that's one of the state legislators or someone like a private, individual like myself running for office. And so this time I really hit it hard. I've traveled over the past 5 weeks to pretty much every corner of this district. I mean, I hit Ephraim and Manti and Sevier County, just Richfield 4 times. I
Okay.
was in Fillmore and Delta. I've been to Tooele County. Tomorrow, no, Thursday, I'll be 5 times. I've been to Utah County and Salt Lake County, obviously where I'm at, like 5 or 6 times. I've showed up to everything, and that's been the biggest thing that everyone has kind of complained to me about whenever I've been speaking to the delegates, is that Mike hasn't been showing up to events. He lets his volunteers or his paid individuals on his campaign just show up, and then he shows up for 10 minutes before he gives a speech. He talks about all the good he's done, without really answering all the bad that he's done,
Okay.
and then he just gets out. But he's been calling only individuals that are really just investing in his campaign. When individuals have called him, he doesn't answer.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
and so I've kind of taken that and given my personal phone number out, right? I literally have it on my site. Everyone can call me, text me, email me. Um, and that actually goes a really long way. And while I haven't really been focusing on calling and I've just been focusing on showing up, I think that that's going a really long way. I don't know if it's enough for me to get over that hump, but I'm putting up the fight this time to show individuals that I actually do mean business and that I do care about our district. And, you know, that the fourth district really deserves somebody who's invested in this community and lives in this community and is willing to answer the hard questions that Mike necessarily won't.
Okay. Okay. Let me ask you about then fundraising. So an
Okay.
article came out today, and it said that Kennedy has raised, I think it's over $800,000.
Yes.
It also said that you and the other GOP candidates raised $0. I'm not sure if that's accurate because I think you have to hit a $5,000 threshold to actually have to file. But maybe
Yes.
can you talk about the fundraising piece of this, and maybe does it matter? Is it an issue?
No, so it is grossly incorrect. I'm about to run over that $5,000 mark. Largely, I would say probably about $3,000 of that is my own money.
Okay.
Others are private individuals who have helped fund or donated their time. So for that, a lot of it's in-kind donations, and most of it is my own capital, right? Where I'm just very lucky to be able to do that on my own, right? And at the end of the day, just to kind of circle back, it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters if you have a good message and you actually meet with people.
You
And
are you're sounding a little robotic on me. Let's see, Mr. Producer, you have any thoughts here? He says bad connection. Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Go out and come back in. Yeah. Jump out and jump back in. Okay. Here we go. He's back. Hopefully this works. Okay. Say
is
something.
that better?
Much. You're back to normal. Okay. I don't know what happened at the end there. Are you in the middle of
Okay.
nowhere somewhere? I thought you have something in Harriman today.
Yeah, I'm actually waiting for people to show up. That's where I'm at right now.
Okay. So we have self-service here, so I imagine that you should be fine. Okay. Let me okay, so the fundraising piece, it sounds like you are fundraising.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just be honest with you. To me, this isn't like a huge issue, but I will say that if you were to make it through to the primary, you would obviously need more money. So how will you address that issue?
So I have about $20,000 in savings right now that if I make it through, that's going to hit my account real quick. And then I'm going to start ad campaigns and traveling and focusing the ground game, which I have already shown that I can do. I'm just making sure that I can get through the state convention before I invest all of my funds.
Okay. And will you be asking more people for money? Are you going to be asking any PACs for money?
For me, I'm not necessarily going after PACs. If individuals would like to reach out to me and help fund my campaign, that is totally acceptable. But I'm not asking for individuals to fund me, because if a politician's going to do it, he needs to show that he can do it without those. I'm tired of individuals having PACs fund them, because then you're pretty much just a NASCAR, right? You're just running around with all of these stickers on you saying who owns you, and nobody should own me except for the people.
Okay. 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 Well, like I said, I just, because I do live in CD4, I do think
Yes.
the issue is, how do you overcome the spending gap? Because a primary race, all Mike Kennedy has to do is just mail out tons of flyers with all the money he has. How will you overcome that?
For me, I know that there is a level of the Utah GOP will help source that, right? So obviously it is there.
He froze on us, Mr. Producer. I got a couple comments here. When he comes back, we'll read our comments too. Let's see if he'll come back. Put him out, and then we'll bring him back. Mr. Producer, will you bring him back on when he's back? Like I said, he's in Harriman. He's right here. He's actually close to my house. Somewhere. I live in Riverton, but because he has an event right after this at a park out here. So hopefully he'll call back, and then we can continue with this interview. I just figured internet would be better, but Mr. Producer says it depends on the phone provider, which could be true. Could be true. Although, like, he could also go sit by a coffee shop or something and crib their internet. Is he back?
Yeah, that issue that's a phone provider problem when it starts doing that. And okay. he needs probably a Wi-Fi rather than just phone. So that would help.
Well, let's see if he comes back. Well, so we had a couple comments here. Jensen says, last convention, Mike Kennedy called me during a big meet and greet event. LOL. And then if they find Groyper, I still don't know what a Groyper is. So someone's going to have to explain this to me at some point. Kennedy has taken AIPAC money. Oh, that's an interesting point. And all of Utah's legislators have taken AIPAC money. What I don't fully understand is how we should think about that. Right? Because I just and I say this to say I am a little bit in the middle on this issue, meaning that I kind of don't have very strong feelings, because I feel like if AIPAC is a bunch of Americans donating money to a group because they strongly believe in Israel and that's their issue, I guess that's fine. It would be like if a bunch of people, I guess, got together and did a group to support India, but I would not support that, because I really have issues with that. I'm sorry, someone just wrote, who did you say was a recovering porn addict? Was that Mike Kennedy? Okay, yeah, that was actually. I think he gave a speech talking about that at the College Republicans event last week. I only laughed because I thought you were asking me. I was like, no, I'm not. That's funny. Okay, yeah, I actually heard the speech was really good, but then I think it makes me wonder, is like, if that was the case, that's fine. I'm glad that you got over it, so whatever. I also think it's interesting because I think he and I are the same age, so I don't understand when that happened. Okay, Jensen maybe said it better than I did. Yeah, hey Scott, are you back?
Okay. Is my audio messed up?
You still sound a little weird.
Okay, let's try this again.
Okay, try one more time. Yeah. Okay. Jensen says, if they are Americans, they have a right to support Israel and make a pact. I just personally want America first candidates. Yeah, okay. That actually is that's what I agree with that. Okay, try it again.
Okay. How's this?
Yeah, better.
Okay.
My producer says you need Wi-Fi, but we'll let it go for now. Okay, so
Okay. Sorry about that.
next time. Okay, let me ask you, since we were kind of talking about a comparison between you and Mike Kennedy, I'm going to ask you a few comparison questions, okay?
Okay.
The first one is FISA. So, like just last week, Congress voted on reauthorizing FISA Section 702 with no reforms for adding a warrant requirement to search the communications of Americans, and it was done at 2:30 in the morning. I believe Mike Kennedy voted for it. Would you have voted for it or against it? I think he turned off his camera, which is fine. You can turn your camera off if that helps with the bandwidth. But now I can't hear you. Mr. Producer, we lost him again. Sorry, guys. This is live radio. I mean, I can keep talking all day long, but okay, we'll wait for him to come back. Let's see. We have some more comments here. So Caroline says, from what I understand, Groypers are the extreme far right. Think Nick Fuentes. Oh, okay. Scott, can we hear you now? Are you there? Hello. I still can't hear anything. Let me text him. Okay, he's going in and out, in and out. Mr. Producer, can you, when he calls in, can you see, are you able to do like a sound check on him before you put him up? Oh, yeah. Hey, Mr. Producer, why don't we have him call in using the phone number? I'll text him. Oh, okay, he said no. Not that, hold on. That's a great idea, bad ideas had a great idea. Ironies. Okay. Okay, I told him to call the number. Let's see if that works. Like I said, bad ideas had a great idea. So let's see if that works. Okay, Marsgate says, oh crap, haha, not you. Yeah, it wasn't me. If I have problems like that, I'll admit it and, whatever. Maybe I'll give a good speech too. Jensen, we already did the Jensen one. And then, okay, so Caroline teaches message. From what I understand, Groypers are the extreme far right. Think Nick Fuentes. Okay. I will say, and I don't know if, sometimes Nick Fuentes will pop into my X feed, and he actually is pretty intelligent. Like some of the stuff he says, I'm like, oh, it's really interesting. I don't know where he gets all his information from, but some of the insights I actually think are very interesting. And I'm like, oh, I never thought of it that way in terms of kind of like how the federal government works. I may not agree with everything he says, but kind of it's good to get multiple viewpoints so you can kind of get a sense of how the world actually works. Okay, let's see if you got my message. Will you let us know when he calls in, Mr. Producer? While we wait, I will talk about, maybe I'll start talking about something else. Well, oh, is he back?
Goud?
Yes, I'm here.
I have your caller.
Okay, perfect.
On the phone.
Does this work?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, much better. We can hear you. Okay. Okay, so did you hear my last question to you before you cut off, Scott? I'll re-ask it.
No, I did not. I just heard FISA.
Okay, so we'll just do a quick compare and contrast. So last week, Congress voted on reauthorizing FISA Section 702 for 5 years with no reform. So, and specifically, people want to see a requirement that people need a warrant to be able to search the communications of Americans. So Mike Kennedy voted for the extension. How would you have voted and why?
So no, because it was highly unpopular among Utahns here. I know there was a big issue with Celeste voting for it and other members of our delegation. For me, it's just not needed. It's a gross misstep over our privacy. So for me, we don't need it.
Okay. Next one. There is there's a congressional, there was, I will say, a congressional slush fund where members could settle sexual harassment and sexual misconduct claims using these taxpayer funds. And I think when they did it, it included a non-disclosure agreement. There was a vote to release the information about those who use the slush fund while also protecting the identities of victims and witnesses. How would you have voted on that?
So I would have voted to release. If you are committing those kinds of those crimes or extramarital affairs or harassing or assaulting individuals while holding, a congressional title, you do not belong in Congress, and it should be exposed.
Okay. Now, I noticed on your website you did talk about the Epstein files. And maybe can you talk about how you would have handled that differently than how it was handled by Congress and the Trump administration?
Yeah, so for me, obviously, my background is in medicine, right? So for me, as long as we're protecting the identities of the individuals that have been assaulted or killed, and those families that are, associated with it, release people's names, right? If there's people in power, even if it brings down the whole system, release those names, because that is what the Trump administration had run on, is releasing the files, and they've been backtracking and saying, oh, we did, move on. And I'm sorry, until people are brought to justice, we shouldn't be moving on. We should be finding out who those people are and prosecuting them.
Okay. Now, one of the issues that I think is going to continue to happen under the Trump administration is that Congress will not pass budgets in a timely manner. So your opponent has said that he supports a bill that would just continue current spending levels until they pass a new budget. So there would not be a partial government shutdown if there's a lapse in appropriations. Do you support that effort?
No. If we can't pass a balanced budget, we shouldn't be passing we shouldn't be passing the budget whatsoever.
Okay. In terms of the budget itself, I mean, I think a lot of people think we need budget cuts, but we're just not seeing them, or there doesn't seem to be an appetite in Congress to cut the budget. Talk about how you would handle that.
Yeah, so if we just look at the budget like a business, right, and see, like, our major spending is on the military, right? So every fiscal year, when we get that back in October, we need to be looking at what we've made, what our debt is, take a portion of what we've made and put it down on the debt, right? And then everything else could go towards funding. Are you there?
I'm here. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. So basically, there's just finding out how much we have left after we pay a portion of what we've made onto the debt, and then funding said programs, right? Military, DHS, Social Security, Medicare, anything that is, that is founded and that we absolutely should be covering, right? And after that point, the only reason we should be going into any red, in my personal opinion, is if we have a natural disaster somewhere, right? Okay. So obviously we need to take care of the American people. Sorry. Am I cutting in and out?
No, you're actually great.
Okay. Sorry, every once in a while I hear a hello, so I'm just
It's not me.
Okay. So yeah, for me, it's just the only reason we should be going into the red at all is to take care of, American citizens, as far as if there's a natural disaster like a Hurricane Katrina, or we have massive, tornadoes that rip through the Midwest, or we have massive earthquakes or wildfires, right? That decimate whole communities. It should be a case by case needs for those acts of God that happen that we have no control over. That's the only reason why we should be going into the red. Other than that, balanced budget, do never run into the red, pay off the debt. It's going to hurt people. It's going to make it tight, but at the end of the day, we're passing this debt off to another generation, and I don't want to hand over $40 to $80 trillion to my daughter in 15 years, right?
Yeah. Okay. Now the issue is they're running over $1 trillion deficit. So in order to fill that gap, are you willing to raise taxes, or are you just talking budget cuts?
Budget cuts. I would love to see Doge era, fraud found, cut, and codified, and then rolling that money into paying off the debt and or keeping programs solvent like our Medicaid and Medicare and all of that stuff.
Okay. All right. Now I want to talk a little bit about immigration. Just to start, your opponent has co-sponsored a bill to create what's called the H-2C visa program. It's a visa only to import workers or foreigners to work in jobs that do not require a college degree. And I'm wondering, would you support that bill?
Absolutely not. So actually and if I could touch a little bit on it, is I've had a lot of delegates reach out to me and ask me the same question, because in the few that have talked to Congressman Kennedy, he's been touting that he wants to cut back on H-1Bs while also co-sponsoring and creating this bill to create that. And his reason being is that there's not enough Americans to fill those jobs.
Yeah.
For me, that doesn't make sense. There are plenty of Americans. There's plenty of parents that I've talked to that say their children just need jobs, but yet they're being replaced by foreign workers.
Okay. Now, can you generally tell us your approach to immigration? And I know I have been very vocal that I am opposed to any temporary visa programs at all, any temporary worker visa programs. Maybe talk about your viewpoint on that issue.
Yeah. So for me, I'm a part of the zero crowd, and I've talked to you about this before, right? I'm a part of the zero, but I know realistically, and I've had a lot of people bite back at me, like you and like a few of the delegates. We're going into a Democrat-controlled Congress. We already know that. Mm-hmm. We're going to be sitting through impeachment trials and 25th Amendment and vote. We're trying to do that. And so, if we're going to try to make any cuts to those, we need to be very smart about it. I would like to see a 50% reduction in those programs. I know that they're wrought with fraud, and there's, specifically China has baby factories. India is, misusing those. But realistically, we're not going to get 100% cut. And if we go in there with a zero, it's not going to happen with the current state of politics, even on the right and the left. So for me, we need to have some give and take. And so if we can at least get a 50% reduction, I think it's a step in the right direction. And then every year we need to be evaluating and cutting until we get to that zero. that does mean, modernizing agricultural equipment, finding individuals that, will fill those jobs. But, ultimately I am a part of that zero crowd.
Okay. Hey, just one thing. Hey, Jensen, I see your comment. I don't know why it's hiding stuff. Mr. Producer, can you look at these comments? I don't know what I did, but I'll ask you a question, Jensen. Okay. That's really helpful. So it sounds like this is more about just how to get there versus what you support.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just trying to look at it from a point where how do we get from point A to point B without sacrificing too much. And like my red line is if we can't get 50%, I'm gonna put my foot down, right? And I'm not gonna move past that, or So if they say, "Oh, we'll take 25%," sorry, no, it's 50% or nothing, right? We're cutting that way down. We would like more, but at least we're getting to 50.
Okay. Well, so then I'm wondering, do you support? It sounds like then you would support, for example, if it was possible, getting rid of the H-1B program.
Yes, that's something that I've talked about, getting rid of the H-1B completely. I just think we need to scale it back until we get to zero, right? If we do it all at once, it's going to shock everything. But at the same time, I know that would be good. But we're also going to put everybody kind of in a predicament. We just need to do it smartly on how we get rid of those H-1Bs completely. Okay,
then what about the H-4 visa? This is a visa that's through a regulation at DHS that allows the spouses of H-1Bs to also get a visa, and they can work anywhere they want. So would you be willing to go and lobby the Trump administration and get rid of that immediately?
Yeah, I would want to get rid of that as well.
Okay. Would you see that the same way? So like with H-1B, you're saying we want to be careful about causing a shock to the system, but the H-4 visa is like this, it's like a freebie to the spouse that isn't even statutorily provided, it's regulatory. Would you support just getting rid of that wholesale?
Yeah, 100%, right? Like we can get rid of that and start scaling back H-1Bs. That's perfectly fine. And then I obviously would oppose the H-2 visa as well. Okay. We don't need to create more.
Word. Yeah, the danger, I don't think people understood this, but the H-2C visa, which is specifically to go to jobs that don't require a college degree, is aimed at importing construction workers, as well as people to work in the oil industry, the gas industry, the coal industry, like all these working class jobs where men and women can go and get really good paying jobs with just a high school degree. They're trying to now create guest worker programs for all of those industries. So in Utah, I think this would impact your district actually, because we have natural resources throughout the state. And allowing this importation would just destroy whole industries or the ability of Utahns to make a living.
Yeah. Exactly, because we have we're booming with population in Utah and Utah County, Salt Lake County, and Tooele County. So if you're just going to replace everybody with visa workers, you're basically cutting out anybody that would be willing to get into construction. And then we have coal factories and coal power plants, in Delta, and geothermal out here, and eventually we're going to have a nuclear plant out in Tooele County, right? So you're going to start replacing those individuals with Americans that could fill those positions and make a good living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm glad we see somewhat eye to eye on this. I will just tell you, I disagree on the H-1B portion. I actually think it should be canceled right away. And one of the reasons I say that is there are tons of tech companies that are actually laying off Americans while applying for H-1B visas. It's really just a replacement worker program. So they love bringing in this like compliant foreign labor and not having to deal with Americans who want time off or have other opportunities, things like that. I would actually just like to see a complete cancellation right away. But
yeah,
you know.
and I think it just depends on the state of the House. If it's Democrat controlled, like obviously that'll be my approach. But if we have a Republican, majority, even if it's slim, I would be willing to go for even more of a cut all the way down to zero, because I know there are many congressmen that are floating this idea.
Okay. Would you support the Dignity Act? I know.
No.
Okay. So no, there's no circumstances under which you will vote for Maria Salazar's Dignity Act that would give amnesty to everybody.
Yeah, definitely not. No amnesty, no Dignity Act, and just to cover it in case you have that question, is no birthright citizenship for me.
Okay, wait. That was next. We actually have a comment about that. So,
I'm against that, and believe it or not, I've actually been. People have come after me for saying no to all of those. So I think we have a problem with people in our party right now in this state. So, but that's a discussion for another time.
Okay. Next, so maybe talk about your views on tariffs.
So we used to completely be ran on tariffs before the IRS was established, right? And I don't see why it can't work. I would love to see the IRS completely abolished, and we could move to a more tariff system. A full, instead of having a hybrid, but a full tariff system. And I just feel like there are so many judges and industries that are not willing to work with the president on this. That's why we're seeing the spike in everything, right? They're not willing to work within the law that the law and the confines that they've been given, so that it's just driving up prices, right? So we see everybody. We always talk about China, right? But we have factories not only in China, we got them in India, we have them in Mexico. Across the world we do, but instead of using resources here and having those factories here working on things, we could drive that price down if we actually just brought things here, and then tariffs would kind of be null and void at that point as well. But ultimately, I am more of a pro-tariff individual.
Okay. I don't know. Like, the question was very neutral. I will tell you that I do see a lot of value in tariffs. To your point, I don't think American workers should have to compete with slave labor in China. That's actually completely unfair, right? China subsidizes their industries, and they basically have slave labor. It's not fair to ask a working class man or woman to make a widget cheaper than they do when they basically don't have to pay them anything. And I think that's kind of what you're saying, right? Okay. Next question. We've got would you vote to fund the National Endowment for Democracy? I love the question.
Can we get a little bit, sorry.
Yeah.
Can we get an explanation as what that is?
Would you vote to fund the National Endowment for Democracy? Did I lose you? Did the FBI get to him? Are you there? What have we done?
It shows that he's there.
Okay. I don't know what's going on.
The call is in. hang on. Let's see. Oh, wait a second. Oh, somehow he got cut off. Okay.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll call back. Let's see here. So we got a couple comments while we wait. So Disagree Butter says, "Ooh, dang, I'm late to the show. Please forgive me, Goud and Jensen. You are forgiven." Disagree Butter says, rather than answer, he hung up. I doubt it. He's actually been pretty. He's pretty. If you guys have any questions, you can write him in. He'll be here for like 4 more minutes if he calls back.
Scott, are you there? I think you're back. Can you hear us, Scott?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry.
Okay. Did you hear the question before you got cut off?
Yeah, it was the National Endowment for Democracy.
Yes. Yeah. So would you vote to fund that?
No. Based off of what little I know, I would probably say no, because I don't know much about it, so I'd have to do a little bit more research, but no.
Okay. Okay. So those are. Let me just ask you now. What you want to tell us? Well, we have like 3 minutes. You want to tell us something that people don't know about you? Maybe that's kind of interesting.
Oh, that people don't know about me?
Yeah.
Oh, weirdly enough, I'm a fantasy author. So I've written 3 books in a fantasy author series, or a fantasy series. I released one back in August of last year, and I have one slated to release sometime around Christmas this year, and then another one in about 2 years from now. That's speaking that, everything works accordingly and I don't get elected. If I do get elected, right, then it'll get pushed out further. But yeah, that's what I like to do on my own side. I've built an entire world. I've created languages. So
Wow.
I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to that. So.
Well, what's it called? What's the book? So
it's called The Shadow. So it's called The Shadow of Kylanara. Book 1 is called Prophecy Unleashed.
Okay. And then you said the second book is coming out at Christmas?
Yeah, hopefully if everything works out well. I've taken 3 months off to focus on campaigning. But if I force a primary, whatever happens in June, then I will get back to editing and then hopefully release it around Christmas.
Very cool. Do you write it under your own name, or do you have a pseudonym? I guess. I assume it's your name. Do you?
I write under my own name. I'm all about transparency. So if people want to come after me for my views, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So we have like 2 minutes left, or you have a minute. I think you have to go. So maybe do you want to tell people where they can find you in between now and Saturday?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So tonight in Harriman at Jalen Crane Park, which is right across the street from City Hall in Harriman, I will have a meet and greet. I'm just scoping it out now where I can actually go, because there's a lot going on. There's even some food trucks if you're hungry. But I'll be here from about 6 to 8 p.m. Tomorrow we'll be down at the Linden Community Center, and we're kind of doing a Q&A/debate where individuals down in Utah County, Salt Lake County, or say we even want to come up from Juab, they can meet with us. We're doing about an hour candidate meet and greet, and then we're going to kick off where the crowd can ask us questions, and we'll all kind of talk about it and then debate our differences on the issues. So that is from 5:30 to about 9 p.m. Again, Linden Community Center. And then out in Tooele County, you can find me out there on Thursday for the convention. So if you're a Tooele County individual, just go to the website and find me out there. And then Wednesday night, I forgot about it. It's something that just popped up. House District 50 down there in Eagle Mountain, Saratoga Springs, and it's open to even Salt Lake County and Utah County. Come and visit me. It is between 6:30 and 9 p.m. at the Chamber of Commerce. I have sent out an email, so if you don't get it, check your spam. It should be coming from scottforutah@gmail.com, and then you can find it all there. And then you can also find it on my X.
Okay, I have that up. We had your website up a little while ago. You said people can also reach you your phone number, and that's on your website.
Yes, it is. And I am an open book. I say text, you can get about 1 to 2 business days, and then everything else is about 3 business days. So I have a lot of people messaging me and emailing me. So I do try to get back as fast as possible.
Okay. I have 2 quick questions for you. We've got, this is an interesting one. If you couldn't vote for yourself in this race, who would you vote for?
So this is a bit of a tight one for me. I've gotten to know all the candidates pretty well, and I would say either Ty or Seth, mainly because Seth is pretty savvy on the Constitution, and then Ty because he's really invested in rural Utah and the issues surrounding it. Isaiah is awesome as well, but I know the other 2 have worked within politics pretty heavily, so that's kind of where it would go.
Okay, and then which counties does the district cover?
Say again?
Which counties are in District 4?
Okay, so you're going to have Sevier, Sanpete, Sevier, Sanpete, Millard, Tooele, kind of like the northwest and east side of Utah County, the south side of Salt Lake County, and that is everything. So it's 7 counties. Oh, excuse me, and Juab County. My bad, Juab County. So them as well.
Okay. Okay, Scott. Well, we wish you luck on Saturday, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Goud. Anytime you want me, just have me come on.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Well, there you go. So we got a couple funny comments here. Disagree Butter said, "Lord of the Utah Rings." I didn't know what he was going to answer to any of the questions. So that was definitely interesting. I'm glad I asked that. I think he's a good candidate. I will say the financial issue will pop because again, once you go into the primary, the money thing is a big deal because it becomes name ID, and those people with money, they'll just flood everything, and then you have to try to overcome it. I know when I ran for county clerk, I think I spent a total of about $70,000, and like half of it was my own money, and then half of it was donated money. And my opponent spent like $400,000, and you could tell the difference because, I'd like open up my Facebook or whatever it was, and I would be all like, Lanny Chapman. They're like nothing for me. So that'll be an issue. But I do think, I really do hope that we actually have a primary in that race, because like I said on social media, the Mike Kennedy thing is not working for me. I really think there are problematic votes there that are fundamental problems. So number one is that hiding of the slush fund use in Congress. Like, that's a no-go for me. We need full transparency on that. Because if you are a sexual deviant or a degenerate in Congress and you are abusing people or abusing your office to go and take advantage of people, I want to know that. I don't want it to be hidden. And so anyone that's voting to hide that needs to be out of office. And that's our entire congressional delegation. And then the second one is the open border stuff. Mike Kennedy is extremely open border. So the fact that he raised $800,000 doesn't surprise me, because all of those companies now that are going to get the cheap labor that he wants to import by the apparently the millions, of course they're going to give him money because they're going to save tons of money. And I just think that whole thing is unpatriotic. So, but I operate a little differently. Okay, so if you are a delegate for CD4, check out the interview, and then let's see what happens on Saturday. Should be kind of fun. Now I want to talk about contention, and specifically, Michelle Tanner posted this on Facebook, and I think this is an interesting topic, because what I had been noticing is there's been kind of, and everybody knows I'm helping Phil Lyman's campaign. I think he's phenomenal, and that he would be a great congressman for CD3, and honestly, he'd be an actual conservative voice in our delegation, which we don't have. But what I thought was interesting is she kind of posted this really long, I would say maybe call it a screed. And just before I talk about this, for those of you who do not know, Michelle Tanner is a council member down in St. George, and she's actually somebody who came into politics because of COVID. So her entry into politics is a response to how the government handled COVID. And so this is somebody that I actually like, and I wish that, or let me put it this way, she understood how COVID was a massive fraud, and it was the government essentially just like taking over our lives under the guise of needing to prevent the spread and, whatever of COVID. But what I don't understand, what's been happening here, is that they're not understanding that that we have corruption in this state, and it is widespread. And so what they do, she's one person that's doing this, but I see this broad-based, is a lot of times when people are trying to avoid contention, they actually blame the victim. And this is, I see this all the time. They blame the victim. They don't blame the people causing the actual contention. And so let me show you what I'm talking about. So she says here, okay, let me see here. Okay, here's what she said. Okay, this is the part I want to read to you. She says, I began to witness multiple poor judgment calls from the Lyman camp, from doing things to intentionally try to make Deidre look bad, which only made themselves look bad, to making a video promoting the Democrat candidate for governor. Okay, first of all, the only person that has made Deidre Henderson look bad is Deidre Henderson. Okay, she's a pathological liar, and she cheated and stole the 24 GOP primary. Now, earlier, Michelle says that, did the Davis County clerk sign off on fraudulent signatures? I don't know. But alleging an audit that reviewed less than 5% of the signatures as proof Cox cheated is less than honest. And so let me kind of wrap this together. Deidre Henderson, well, number one is Michelle Tanner clearly hasn't looked into the issue, and that's disappointing because she's actually a council member in St. George, and Washington County also had the forgeries. And in fact, that's how this whole thing was discovered, is that the Washington County clerk disclosed that there was a criminal the attorney disclosed that there was a criminal investigation going on into signature gatherers for Don Ipsen's campaign. That's what caused people to start investigating what was going on. And that's what put Michael Clara on this path that he's been on, now exposing that the 24 GOP primary for governor was completely stolen. Deidre Henderson did not have the signatures, or Deidre Henderson and Governor Cox, they didn't have 28,000 signatures, and they knew it before they announced it to the public. They knew it. Hands down, they knew it. They played all sorts of games with the system. They continue to cover it up. And so what I have an issue with here is somebody saying that the people that are actually out there trying to expose the corruption are the ones causing the contention. We're not the contention causers. We're actually trying to right a wrong. We're trying to bring justice where there is injustice. I actually consider what we're doing to be the godly path. The ungodly path are the people that go around and they victim blame instead of going after the people that are actually causing the contention. So if Michelle Tanner has an issue here, number one, she should go and she should research to find out what we have found. Right? Don't talk out of your ass. Sorry, I'm being a little bit passionate here, but like, seriously, don't just say shit when you haven't actually looked at it and insult people that have looked at it way more deeply than you ever have. You're an elected official. Take the time to go in and do the research. That's how this works. You don't just get to blow hot air out of your mouth. Actually go and look into it. And then when you do that, you'll realize that the cheating was by Governor Cox, Lieutenant Governor Henderson, and Davis County Clerk Brian McKenzie, Ryan Cowley, the Attorney General's office. Yeah, they were all involved in it. And so if you want to avoid contention, you should go after the people that cheated, not the people exposing the cheating. That's ass backwards. And to add to this, this is like if somebody gets raped and then the victim comes forward and says, hey, that man or woman raped me. And you're like, well, you're being contentious. Why did you bring it up? That doesn't make any sense. But that's what's happening here. That's the same thing. If you get discriminated against at work and then you go and you file a lawsuit and Michelle Tanner's like, you're being contentious. How dare you file a lawsuit? Me? I'm contentious? You don't think my employer is being contentious by discriminating against me illegally? It's me? You see what I'm saying? We need people to understand that when you're talking about people being contentious, you need to go after the people actually causing the contention, not the victims of the injustices. And I see this a lot. This is all over social media, actually, because I think what's happening is that there is this massive kind of establishment pile-on right now, because for the establishment, the worst thing that could happen for them is that Phil Lyman is elected to Congress. That's the reality of what this is all about. It scares them because for somebody like Michelle Tanner, she's talked about as a potential lieutenant governor candidate for Jason Chaffetz. If you know what's going on, Jason Chaffetz is being selected by the powers that be to be the next governor because they realize that Deidre Henderson is a pathological liar and that she actually has damaged her ability to be elected and to have it be credible. And so they're not going to run her. Now she's still going to run because I don't think that she realizes that they used her and they're going to throw her under the bus. But they want Jason Chaffetz as the next governor. Michelle Tanner has talked about the next LG. And so like now you have to basically sell yourself out in order to sign up for that. And so I just think Utahns need to be very careful. I understand there's a cultural thing here that everybody wants to avoid contention. And that's led to a state where there's so much corruption. It's everywhere. Oh, okay. I did it. Opinions expressed are those of the host and do not reflect the views of KMMU. Happy, Mr. Producer. So anyway, that's the point. I think here we have to understand what the establishment is doing, and we have to be able to call it out, and then also just ignore it, because like this has to be one of the dumbest posts I've seen. And mainly because she is attacking the victims. Phil Lyman and his supporters are the victims of the forgeries that happened in 2024. Governor Cox is not a victim. Lieutenant Governor Henderson is not a victim. Davis County Clerk Brian McKenzie is not a victim. The company, The Gathering, that hired all the signature gatherers that committed the forgeries is not a victim. The only people that are victims are, again, Phil and his supporters. They followed the rules. They followed all the rules. Mr. Producer wants to know Derek Brown is also not a victim, correct? But we're basically now demonizing people who followed the rules. And you can kind of see that continuing even today, right? So when you think about this, the race in CD3, you have quote unquote incumbent, whatever, a sitting congresswoman who has had cheating happen in multiple of her elections that benefited her. So in her first election, she wasn't even a resident of Utah. She was a resident of Northern Virginia. And Lieutenant Governor Henderson allowed her to still run illegally. Number two is, in the second time she ran, 24, in the primary, they had, I think it was maybe a couple thousand ballots from areas that were heavily pro Colby Jenkins that ended up getting shipped to Vegas. So the voters timely put them into their mailboxes. They got shipped to Vegas, and then they got date stamped the next day because they got there just after midnight. And our side in Utah, they wouldn't accept them. Even though I think if you look at the election code, they have some leeway to be able to accept those ballots, but they didn't. They actually said no. And I think some of that is because it came from areas that were pro Colby Jenkins. Had those ballots been counted, she wouldn't be a congresswoman today. On top of that, clerk's offices have something called a cure list. And the cure list is if you use a mail ballot, you put your signature on it, it gets mailed to the clerk's office. If it doesn't match, they'll contact you. But they'll also provide that cure list, or they have the discretion to provide that cure list to the parties and the campaigns so that they can go and contact their supporters. Lori Stringham actually successfully used this in 2020 to flip her race from Democrat to Republican, to her credit. And in that 2024 primary between Celeste and Colby Jenkins, the Salt Lake County clerk turned over their cure list. They actually do that. They do that regularly. I think that's a good thing. The Washington County clerk would not provide their cure list, and Colby Jenkins beat Celeste by 20 points there. So you can see how there's constant games going on with our election system to benefit establishment candidates. Now, if you notice, Celeste never calls out any of these issues. She's not calling for, we want everything to be equal. The results should be the results with the same rules for everybody. She's okay with all this cheating going on. Now, I did see her at the Duchesne County Convention, and she mentioned how she, and I think maybe it was Blake Moore. No, it wasn't Blake Moore. Maybe it was Burgess. They filed that lawsuit challenging the Prop 4 redistricting. And she's trying to use that to create bona fides that she is, or bona fides, that she is an election integrity person. But the reality is that was done, that was like a Hail Mary pass at the last second. That's not actually helping with election integrity issues at all. She doesn't really understand Utah's election system. She hasn't been here fighting our fights. If you listen to her, she knows very little about these kind of, I would say civilizational issues that we're dealing with in Utah, trying to fix an election system, which I think actually is the basis of kind of fixing the government. She's nowhere to be found. She knows nothing about it. And so when you compare that to Phil Lyman, he's done a bunch of things that have actually helped fix the system. So to Michelle Tanner, I say this. So you're saying that Phil should have just gone away after the primary happened. Yeah, there was cheating, but you should just go away. You should just be quiet. Don't say anything. You're not, just don't be contentious. Yeah, they cheated, but don't be contentious. And so instead of doing that, Phil actually stood up. He filed lawsuits. As a result, the state legislature changed all the laws around signature gathering. Now we can poll watch. They didn't allow that in 24, which is why they were able to cheat. Meaning Phil Lyman's campaign has been poll watching every single day when they have been verifying signatures, because we are going to challenge Celeste signatures if there are any games being played. We've been there, like I said, every day. We're taking advantage of the new rules that they passed. Those would not have happened had Phil just slinked away and not stood up to right or wrong. He filed a lawsuit seeking the full voter rolls, like I talked about earlier. That lawsuit caused the legislature to change its rules. Todd Weiler recently admitted it. that the legislature got advice that they were out of compliance with the National Voter Registration Act because of Phil's lawsuit. They didn't even, allegedly, they didn't know that, but they've now changed their laws. They're making the voter rolls more public. There's, like I said, we're having some issues with this at-risk voter designation and potential abuse, but they are now, we have way more transparency than we did before. And that's because Phil was willing to stand up. He didn't listen to people like Michelle Tanner. And I'm glad he didn't. And we should be thankful for that. And we should want way more people to do that. I wish Utahns would stand up every single day and stop letting the government bamboozle you. Stop letting government officials lie to you. Stop letting government officials hide things from you, and stop believing them when they tell you stuff. They lie all the time. You have to be willing to challenge them. And then when you think that they're, even when you think that they're telling the truth, go and make a grammar request and figure out if it's actually true. 9 times out of 10, you'll find out that they're lying to you. Anyway, so that's my message to Michelle and the people like her. You know, I appreciate her for what she did for COVID, but she's wrong on this issue. And if it was up to her, nothing would have changed from 2024 to now in terms of our election system. It would be just as bad. And so she should actually thank Phil because he fixed a problem that she didn't fix. And she should spend some time going and watching Michael's videos at least and figuring out so she could understand better what happened in 24. Right now, it's very clear she has no clue. But she wants to keep this blowing hot air all over the place. Okay, so you are listening to and watching KMMU, Main Street Media, Utah. The Goud Crowd is live on X, Rumble, YouTube, and our website, kmmu.org. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for listening to the Goud Crowd. Okay, so that's what I had on this. Oh, there was another one that was kind of funny about this too. So then, like I said, there is this really desperate effort on the part of the establishment to just attack Phil, right? Because when I say this, for whatever reason, he is their biggest threat. And so then Michelle was also claiming that Phil is not pro-life enough, but apparently Celeste is. But it turned out she doesn't even know about Celeste's voting record. So, you know, and for the record, Phil is pro-life, and he lives a pro-life. I mean, just to start, he lives a pro-life life, right? He's going to marry the same woman for like 40 years. They have 5 kids. They have 20 grandkids. He's voted for pro-life legislation. And in contrast, right, Celeste doesn't have kids, isn't married to a man or a woman, whatever. And, you know, I think that's a big contrast, but also she voted against something called the Norman Amendment. And when she did that, she ended up funding abortion providers across the country. So to the tune of over $5 million. So if you're gonna have these types of attacks, and here's my point, you should at least make them realistic, make them believable, because otherwise you start to look ridiculous, especially when you're getting like into the tiniest little things instead of being able to and not even knowing your own person's voting record. Because like I said, Celeste, that's not, you know, that dog don't hunt when it comes to all these different issues. Because if you start digging through her voting record, it's very liberal. I mean, she could essentially be a Democrat. She may be one, actually. Okay, let's see. Disagree Better says, I just met Phil for the first time this weekend. He seems like a good dude. He is a good dude. Yeah, he totally is. You know, and I work with him very closely, so I think he is the best politician I've ever met. Like, very honest, very transparent. What you see is what you get. He's not like scheming behind the scenes or anything like that. Jensen says, am I mistaken, or was there another audit that reviewed every single signature and made Cox off by more? You might be right, because I think there were a total of 3 audits. But I will say that I do not remember if there was one that looked at all the signatures or not. I know this. they don't want us to see the signature packets because, as I have said, it will be very obvious that all the signatures were forged, or thousands of them, and that there was no doubt from the beginning. They knew. Let's see here. Marsgate says they are the perps. Yes, or so they are the perps. Yes, they are. The fine Groiper, so true, always fight. Yes. And then Truthsless says the JT Show had a great article summarizing the full story about the 2024 election issues. It's a must read. I agree. Actually, I read it. It was very well done. Like, really, he actually I think he took all of the different pleadings in the lawsuits and stuff and then put them into AI and had that kind of compile the information for him, and then use that to do a really good summary article of the whole situation. Because I will tell you this, the 2024 election theft is the best example of a stolen election that I've ever seen. Because think about the 2021, it was everything in there is hard to prove, right? You know that that for example, like the idea is, they pass through mail ballots where the signatures don't match. Well, that's hard to prove. And even if you can prove it, then it's hard to pull the ballots out, because once they separate the envelope from the ballot, it's like a secret ballot and you can't connect it back. And then people say the machines change the votes, hard to prove. You didn't have the signatures. That is actually something we can physically prove. If you let me look at those petitions, I will show you that they were forged, that it was obvious, and that everybody who saw them knew that the election had been stolen 100% hands down. And that all their claims to the contrary. So Michelle Tanner says, oh, well, the clerk said publicly that they had enough signatures. He was lying. He knew that they didn't have the signatures, and he was lying to you. Like, I was just like, does it not cross her mind that this person is lying to her? Really? Like, you just trust the government now? Ugh. Anyway, Jensen says, Phil takes heat for our sins. He is a very nice person. He really is. I agree. I feel bad because I think a lot of times that is true. People, I think Utahns struggle with a couple things. Okay, I'll tell you, these are the big ones. One is Utah men do not know how to handle aggressive women. And so you see how that works in our politics. It's like they recoil and they have no idea what to do. That's a weird cultural thing I've noticed here. I think the avoiding contention is actually turning into a negative, because again, it's aimed at the wrong people. Instead of being aimed at the people causing the contention, it is aimed at the victims of those people. And so and I'll just give you an example. So I've had people say that I'm very negative because I bring up that Amy Winder Newton targeted me. And I'm like, what? I'm the victim. She targeted me. She used her office, abused it, and targeted me personally. I'm the victim. So if I'm trying to then right the wrong, I'm not being contentious. I didn't try to do something. She started it. So you should go and tell her to not do that. And you should let me deal with trying to right the wrong. Now it's being partly right. The wrong is being partly righted because she'll be out of office soon. And, I guess she'll be the director of families until Governor Cox's administration is over. But then hopefully she'll go off and live happily ever after with her scissor sister, Deidre Henderson. Okay, then Truthsless says, it's way quicker to read versus watching all of Michael's videos to give people an idea of what happened. Oh, that's a great suggestion. So, hey, Michelle, if you're listening, you could check out that article. That'll help you out. Disagree, Butter. Why does every candidate for governor need a female running mate? Diversity. Everybody knows that. Yeah, actually, Jensen, this is a good point. Jensen brings up they rigged out Phil's original running mate. So I've seen people bring that up. His original running mate wasn't qualified to run, like a criticism. And then I'm like, wait, but Celeste Malloy also wasn't qualified to run. Do you notice how they treated them differently? And by the way, Lane Bangater had more of a connection to Utah than Celeste had, right? Celeste moved out of Utah. Well, maybe she moved out of Utah. There's been I've heard some kind of scuttlebutt that she may have never lived in Utah, right? And I guess like maybe she lived in Nevada close to Utah and just commuted was the thought. I don't really fully understand it because I'm not sure how far the Nevada border is from working in Washington County. So a little bit unclear to me, but I've heard that. Ultimately, though, she left Utah in 2019 and she lived in Northern Virginia. Daryl Acumen posted something saying that she actually voted in Northern Virginia for a couple of election cycles. So she was not a resident of Utah, and Lieutenant Governor Henderson still let her run. So to Jensen's point, they were all about keeping Lane Bangeter off of the ballot. You know, they're standing at the door to make sure Phil can't file with Lane, like this kind of stuff. But Celeste Malloy, no issue. No, oh yeah, come on in. You get to file. That's fine. And then let's see. Disagree Butter says, rigged him out, but allowed Malloy. Jensen says, Phil's first running mate could have possibly earned a Trump endorsement. Oh, that's interesting. I guess I didn't know that. And then Disagree Butter says, I asked that, but I think Natalie Clausen is amazing. Yeah, I actually agree. I think it worked out fine, and probably for the better, to be honest with you. And then Disagree Butter says she allegedly lived in Beaver County for 10 years. No comment. Jensen says, yes, Natalie Clausen is awesome. You know, so I have a very good friend from law school. She lives in New Jersey. She is Jersey, like 100% Jersey, the stereotype of a Jersey girl, even though she's, you know, we're similar ages. And we drove down to, I think it was Zion, and we went through Beaver, and I took her to the store, and I was like, oh, look at this. They have these shirts that say, I love Beaver on them. You should get one. I got one. And, you know, it's kind of funny, right? Because anyway, it's kind of funny if I wear it since I am gay, but she would not, absolutely refused to buy one. I tried to buy her one. She was like, I will not wear it. I do not want people thinking I'm a lesbian. That's all that makes me think of. Every time I go down there, I'm like, oh, I should buy her one and mail it to her, but I know she won't wear it, even though it's really funny. Okay, let's see here. So foreign workers, that's what we'll talk about next. Now that I got that off my chest about contention, like I said, the overall lesson is this. I am fine with people trying to avoid contention. Okay. But I really think if you're going to tell other people to avoid contention, you need to focus on the people causing it, not the victims or the people who are attacked or trying to right the wrong. You should encourage people who are trying to seek justice to do so. That's always a positive thing. That's what we should be doing. We want a better world. You only get that if the people who are wrong go and they fight to make it right. Okay, so foreign workers. We had a little bit of discussion with this with Scott, and I'll tell you, I've been going around and talking to people, and one of the biggest complaints I'm hearing is that, you know, it's expensive. Living is expensive today, which I agree, and wages are not rising. And so the question then is, why aren't they rising? And it is my view, it's because we are being flooded by foreigners in every single industry, and they're taking up jobs. This whole industry is now dominated by foreigners. The biggest ones I'm thinking are probably construction, based on what I've seen, restaurants, but this will spread further if you reelect people like Celeste and Mike Kennedy. So here, let me show you this video. And this is how we'll start this discussion.
Support foreigners to do jobs Americans can't do, like working at hotels.
All right, here we go.
Do you support temporary visa programs? I saw a video where you talked about the need to import foreigners to do jobs Americans can't do, like working at hotels.
Yeah, well, it's not jobs Americans can't do, but we have a lot of industries in Utah that are dependent on visa workers. In fact, I had Utah businesses in my office today talking about this. So a lot of our construction, you know, my brothers all framed houses for a while before their missions. None of them do that now.
So just to start, that what she's doing there is actually very purposeful, right? She wants people to know that she grew up LDS, and then that's what that was aimed at. The second point on that is that construction, Americans would do construction, but the entire industry is flooded with foreigners now. And if you go and you talk to people that work in it, they will talk about how in some cases, they can't even work in those jobs anymore because you actually have to know Spanish to be able to do the job. I had there was a project going on by my house, and I used to walk by it a couple times a day. And I'm telling you, it was all Spanish speaking people, clearly illegals. And they would, what I thought was fascinating is it was a government project. So it was a Jordan Basin Improvement District doing it. I actually complained to them and said, hey, you guys have illegals working on this project. They then told me, okay, well, we have an inspector that is with them every single day. We'll check. The way they checked is they contacted the employer and asked him if he had illegals working there. And then they told me, oh, he told us he doesn't. That's sufficient. Just to give you a sense of how the system is rigged against Americans, those are clearly illegals. Our government is like fully on board with hiring illegals for the entire construction industry, and they don't even follow the regulations. So just to give you an example, I learned that they had to keep the lanes a certain width. It actually scratched my truck one day because it was too narrow, and it hit a tree, like a tree branch scratched my truck. And so I went out there after I learned what the minimum width was, and I ran a measuring tape on it. And it was narrower than required. And I contacted them and was like, hey, it's narrower than required. I took pictures of it and video, and they had to have them come and actually change it. It's because they're hiring illegals who don't know the rules, probably don't read English, don't understand how this is supposed to be done, and are not following the regulations, aren't following the standards. It's why I think it's actually why roads break down faster. The infrastructure is not lasting. Homes don't last as long. All of it is due to the flooding of those industries by foreigners. Now, she's saying we actually need foreign workers, even though her brothers did it at one point in time. I just think that's offensive. It's a total slap in the face to, I would mostly probably young men who would be 100% willing to go and do those jobs as her brother did before they go on their missions. Some who would even probably do it full time if it was available to them and paid a living wage. It doesn't do that now because it's been flooded with foreigners.
So a lot of our construction industry depends on visa workers. A lot of our tourism in Utah depends on visa workers. The ski.
So tourism is hotels, restaurants, tour guides. You know, if you go down, I went down to Moab once, and I remember we went on this tour. It was an American who took us on like a Jeep tour where he drove us through the rocks and stuff. Can you imagine? Essentially what she's advocating for is that someone, like, I'd want to go to Moab and have a foreigner drive me around in a Jeep. No, I don't want that. I'm traveling around America. I want to actually interact with Americans. You know, if I want to interact with foreigners, I'll go to a foreign country. So on that basic level, it's offensive, but also all of these jobs would pay more if people like Celeste would stop importing foreign workers to do all of these industries. We have, you know, like, it's so offensive. We have 330 million Americans. Yeah, they can do all these jobs. I know it's shocking, and they'll do them. You just have to pay them more than what you're paying illegals. And so what I always say is, like, when employers tell you I can't find Americans to do that job, what they actually mean is I can't find Americans to do the job at the low wage I want to pay.
The industry employs a lot of people during the winter who then go home during the summer to other countries. And then they come back and run ski lifts and clean hotel rooms again.
So this is, I think Disagree Butter said, we basically have to import ski bums. I grew up with kids who used to go, like, you know, do a ski resort thing during the winter because they enjoyed doing it. It was fun. And now, according to Celeste, nobody wants to do it, and we have to import foreigners to run ski resorts.
during the winter. Our agriculture industry, our sheep farmers have sheep herders that come from other countries where sheep herding is part of the culture and part of their family tradition. And they come for the season and they stay out in the mountains with the sheep, and then they go home for 6 months and spend time with their family, and then they come back.
Yeah, for those of you guys who don't know, Carson Jorgensen used to be the chair of the state GOP. He's a sheep farmer, I think in Juab County. He claims that he has to import foreign sheep herders because he can't find Americans to do the job. And apparently they are specialists and you cannot train people to do this job. So I'll let you decide if you think that's true. I do not. I heard that and I was like, that has to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. But they're desperate. They are desperate to just have cheap labor, as is Carson too. Carson wanted to be the governor. Can you imagine what a disaster he would be as governor? I just cannot.
We have to have a path for all of those jobs that keep Utah's economy strong. So it's not about importing people to do jobs that Utahns can't do. It's about importing people to do jobs that they're specialized in that Utahns aren't signing up to do. We have a very low unemployment rate in Utah. And so.
Okay, so yeah, disagree about it. Sheep herding was Southern Utah culture until foreign labor killed that culture. Yeah, great point. And let me just add, so she's saying we have a very low unemployment rate. Okay, well, if that is true and we have too many jobs, then wages should be going up, but that's not happening. So I actually don't think the unemployment rate is accurate. And it only counts people that are actively looking for work. So if there's people that have given up, and I think that there are a lot of people that have given up, they're not counted in that number. I suspect our unemployment rate is actually a lot higher than what's popping in government figures. And we need to start understanding how this works and start fighting these efforts to bring in foreign workers. The next phase of this is she's talking about these industries where people will be like, oh yeah, Americans don't want to do it. I don't know. I don't think these people talk to the same people I do, because I talk to people all the time that want to do all sorts of jobs and then have done all sorts of jobs. I have gay friends in Utah who were cowboys. I assume they would have gone and done sheep herding at some point in their life. I know guys here who do construction work. They'd be happy to be able to do construction work and to get paid better for it. I know people that love working at ski resorts. I know actual Utahns who go and work at ski resorts. They're not foreigners. They are here. And they do it because they think it's fun. But I'm sure they would love to be able to have better pay, better working conditions. But that's not going to happen if the ski resorts can just import foreign labor instead of having to provide the types of benefits and working conditions that an American would expect. And rightfully so, by the way. So I saw a response where someone was like, oh, Americans are so entitled. I was like, yeah, we have a right to be entitled. That's how it works. This is your country. You have a right. You have a right to say to your country, I should be entitled to be able to find a job in my own country over foreigners. And it's on my own view. I actually think that we should have whole industries where we shut off to foreigners. 100%. Like, no, if you immigrate, until you become a naturalized citizen, you cannot do these industries. I would put trucking in that. I would put construction in that. We need to start shutting these industries off to foreigners. We do it for professionals. So like lawyers, you can't just come over. And so if she's a lawyer, she's only worked for the government, so she doesn't actually know what it's like to work for the private sector. But if you're not in a protected industry like that, you're having to compete against these foreigners, especially if you're working class. And so I just think we need to start treating our working class the same way that we treat professionals. So I would just shut off all these industries to foreigners at all. Now, let's see. We can listen to a little bit more of this.
Some of these visa jobs help Utah businesses get the labor they need to be able to turn a profit, and those profits for Utah businesses help the economy in Utah. In fact, I was at a press conference this morning with Speaker Schultz and President Adams and the whole Utah delegation and a lot of members of our legislature. ALEC just declared Utah the best state to do business with the strongest economy again for the 19th year in a row. So we're doing some things right in Utah. And then that creates some problems like labor shortages.
Yeah. So we don't have a labor shortage. And let me just add this. So she talks about the business profit piece. They're allowing businesses to hire illegals. It's widespread in Utah. That's unfair to the businesses that actually follow the rules. So just think about that unfair competitive advantage. Then she tells us about the profits these businesses are making. Why should I care about your profits? If you're hiring illegals, that doesn't benefit me. It doesn't benefit any Americans. It benefits you. And actually, while you're doing that, you're destroying Utah's culture by importing people that that hate us. So I'm actually not. I don't know. I don't actually think she knows what she's talking about. She's actually, like I said, she doesn't live here. She hasn't lived here in a long time. So maybe she doesn't really talk to Utahns. But let's see what we got here. Truth Sleuth. I proved to Carson that he was lying about Utahns not being willing to work, and he blocked me. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Marsgate, and she invests in all those businesses. Oddly enough, she's probably the only one that's not corrupt in that way, like the personal investment piece. At least if you look at her financial disclosures, to be honest with you, she's kind of a fail on the financial side, like the personal finances. The reason I say that is this. I'm a single gay man. I'm not single, but you know what I'm saying? Like I don't live with Cass. And but over the years, I've actually saved money because of the fact that I don't have kids. So and most of my career actually was spent working for the government. So I worked for the federal government. Well, I worked for the federal government for like 14, 15 years or something like that. And then I've done the private sector stuff for probably like 8 years. So even with that, I was able to save up money, invest, and stuff like that. Because as a lawyer, you'll actually make a decent income. And if you don't have kids, I actually think you can save a lot of money. She hasn't done that, so I don't. It's kind of surprising to me when you see that, because I would have expected someone in her position to have saved a lot more money than she did. Okay. Now let me talk about where this is going. When you're looking at voting for someone for Congress, you need to be thinking prospectively. So you look at their record, look at the things that they say, and then you have to think about how are they going to vote on bills in the future that they may or may not be willing to tell you about, right? And so this is the bill. We talked about this with Scott, but the next effort is to create what's called the H-2C visa program. Now, I went and I actually researched this bill. It specifically says that it will only allow the importation of workers so that they can, for jobs that do not require a college degree. So this is an H-1B program for working class jobs. The H-1B is more aimed at like the tech industry, although they use it for like 7-Eleven clerks too now, I guess. But this is a whole new class of visas that will specifically be aimed at working class jobs. Mike Kennedy is actually one of the co-sponsors of this bill, which is why I will never vote for him for any position. I don't care. Not doing it. This is coming next. Now, this will also be aimed at high-paying working class in industries where working class individuals or people with a high school degree or without a college degree can get a very good-paying job, including the oil industry. So let me play this for you. I just happened to catch this when I was listening to an interview, and I was shocked by it.
Sector, our hospital. I will add to that, there is angst among our agriculture sector, our hospitality sector, our oil and gas workers, etc., about labor and about what's going on with border and enforcement. But generally, they're all very patient about wanting to get things right because they know we need to secure the border. They want us to do things like Plyler v. Doe and stopping the taxpayer subsidized education of illegal alien children because the Supreme Court ruled on it. They want birthright citizenship to get ended. They want sanity. And then they want some sort of a guest worker program. My view is I want to get all this secured, codified, and get it done. And by the way, I will add.
So that's Representative Chip Roy, and he's actually a conservative, and I think he's in the Freedom Caucus. And it was that end part that caught my ear, right? He says, I am, the oil and gas industry wants to have a guest worker visa program. Understand, he to me, that is a reference to the H-2C visa program. They don't actually need to import workers, but they're looking for cheap labor. And so now someone as conservative as Chip Roy is willing to go and help businesses do that. Now with Celeste, you heard that interview where she talks, she has a long list of businesses and industries where she thinks they should be able to import workers. So the ski industry, the tourism industry, the construction industry, the sheep herding industry. I'm sure that if she had an opportunity to keep going, she would have. But I would expect her to vote for the H-2C program if she is reelected. And then that program for Utahns will be used to flood all of our resource industries with foreign workers. It will completely destroy the ability of Utahns to make a living in the Uinta Basin, right? That's where they have a big oil and gas industry. Down in west Utah, where they've got uranium mining, right over here, I guess the copper mine. All of these industries will be gone. You will no longer be able to get a job there because they will allow foreigners to come on quote unquote temporary visas, and they will take your jobs. And they will do it for less money. They'll do it for fewer benefits and for worse working conditions. They'll never take leave. I'm just going to tell you why employers want to hire these people. They'll never take leave. They won't file discrimination complaints. They won't complain that their boss said something mean to them. None of that. And so when you give employers that option, they will take it. That's where this is heading. Celeste Malloy will vote for that bill. Mike Kennedy will definitely vote for that bill because he's a co-sponsor of it. Blake Moore will vote for that bill. So if you want to protect your children and grandchildren, you have to vote against these people. We've got to get better people in office. And I will say, when I went to Duchesne County, I was there representing Phil's campaign, and I spoke for him, and I actually brought this up as an issue. I had a woman come up to me afterwards, and she was like, can you give me more information about this visa you're talking about? So I sent her these posts, and I was like, this is what it is. And so you just have to kind of understand what Celeste has said and what she'll vote for. And then she was like, yeah, she's like, I have teenage sons. I want them to be able to find a job here. And the oil industry is the best paying industry we have. Like, what happens if those jobs are now being taken by foreigners? I was like, yes, exactly. And on top of that, you have to think about what happens with the culture of the area when they flood it with foreigners. I mean, you're seeing this now in Texas. You're seeing this in Harriman. Once they do that, it actually destroys the local culture. It destroys like the Utah culture in Utah. It destroys the Texan culture, and it destroys the American culture. We've got so many immigrants in the country now. I don't think people are feeling that there is a common culture throughout our country anymore at all. I just think we've kind of lost maybe the plot. Okay, let's see here. We've got, Caroline Teaches Math says, Goud, were you a U.S. prosecutor? No. I worked for, I think it was 10 years. I worked at the Department of Justice in the tax division on the civil side. And so we used to go after delinquent taxpayers civilly. And then for 4 years, I worked at the Patent and Trademark Office, and I was in-house counsel there. I did a lot of employment law and then also administrative law, and kind of just any questions that came up. And let me see what else. That's all my government experience. Oh, and I clerked for a year, so that's all my like government experience. But yeah, I've never done any criminal work, except I guess I've done it kind of adjacent in the Guard or in the Army Reserves when I've had to kind of deal with criminal issues, but not just because like a soldier committed a crime somewhere else type of thing. Oh, and the truce list, yeah, great point. Plus the foreigners send their money outside of the US, further harming the economy. Exactly, that's true, yeah. And think about it. you know, there's an argument that under the Patriot Act, they could actually stop all foreign money transfers by illegals, and they won't do it. And so we have billions of dollars flowing out of the US to foreign countries, which doesn't help us at all. It has no, I mean, it builds beautiful buildings somewhere else. So I'll just give you an example. When you go to India, my parents are from Hyderabad, and they'll go visit. And I remember one time my dad came back and he was like, yeah, it's so weird. There are these whole buildings of old people. Their kids have all gone to the US on H-1B visa programs, and they send money home, and then they buy their parents like a nice luxury condo to live in. And the parents are like, oh, we're living this nice life. Our kids are in India, but the kids are just sending money back so their parents can live a much nicer life than they could have had the child stayed in India. But, you know, it also creates a weird incentive where they don't develop India enough. Because, I mean, if the claim is true, and all these Indians coming here on H-1Bs, and I'm just using them as an example because obviously I know a little bit more about it, are super duper talented, then I don't understand why they're not able to improve their home country. But that's just me. and you know, like, I will say India has improved. Like from the time I was a kid until the last time I went, and it's been a little bit since I've gone. It had gotten improved in a lot of ways, but also, you know, it's still, the cultural issues really make it so they can't develop. It's not I don't know that it's a talent problem. And I know sometimes you see that online where people are like, oh, all the people in India are dumb or something like that. But I actually think it's a culture issue, that the culture itself does not produce the type of work ethic, the type of community that you need to be able to build a clean and beautiful country. Truthfully, if Utahns will keep the money in Utah, correct. They will do that. Now, here's the other piece of this. I know that some people that live in the suburbs, especially, think that their kids will be fine as you go on importing all of these workers, right? And so I'll just say this. I don't know that you actually know that, and I don't know that you know that your grandkids will be fine if we keep on importing foreign workers, right? And if you want to get a sense of what I mean by that, look at the tech industry. We have tons and tons of Americans who can no longer find jobs in the tech industry because of the fact that the H-1B program has destroyed it as a career field. And so you have all these Americans, we've told them to learn to code. And they go and they follow all the rules, they do the right things, and then the jobs are given to foreigners. And so essentially, if we keep going down the path we're on and we allow people like Celeste and Mike Kennedy and Blake Moore to expand all these visa programs and fill all the jobs in America with foreigners, all that's left is, you know, you can go join the military and then they can go send you in a foreign war to die. So we become, and while we're doing that, the foreigners get all the good jobs in America, and you know, the illegals get all sorts of free crap we have to pay for. And this is where we're heading, if you want my personal opinion. Like, this is, and it seems hopeless in a lot of ways, if I'm totally honest with you. But I figure, you know, we've inherited a great country, so we got to do what we can to try to fight to keep it against people that clearly don't feel the same way because they don't actually stand up and fight for the things that we're willing to fight for. Okay, I've got 2 minutes left, or I have 1 minute left. Okay, well, I don't have any. I guess that's it. So look, Saturday's a state convention. Should be super fun. It'll be really exciting. I'm hoping that in CD4, I don't think anyone gathered signatures in that race. So I hope that the delegates will send at least 2 people to the primary. So please don't just make this a Mike Kennedy only choice. Let's actually have a primary and let this play out. You know, Mike needs to get some heat so that he'll change his positions. Again, if he's a nominee, I'm not voting for him, but let's at least try to fix the problem. In CD3, I'm hoping that we'll end up with Phil. I mean, Celeste, I think I'll have enough signatures to get put on the ballot. But so it doesn't really matter what she gets. So I would just say you should just vote for Phil. He's the best candidate in that race. CD1, I really think, hopefully the delegates just knock Blake Moore out. I don't know if that'll happen or not. I don't really have a sense of it because it'll also make things way more exciting. And we need some political excitement. Okay, it is 7 o'clock. So thank you very much for listening to the Goud Crowd. It's been a pleasure. I'm your host, Goud. We are on every Monday from 5 to 7 p.m. And you can catch us on KMMU, Main Street Media, Utah. We're live on X, Rumble, YouTube, and our website, kmmu.org. So please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for listening to the Goud Crowd, and I will see you next week. Good night.